And yeah, I'm just basically gonna read it. Probably say why after, because it's a little bit, but it's definitely worth the listen. It's just my favorite one from this book, because I have a little book of his speeches, but this one really caught my eye, and I wanted to share it. We want to have an off-the-cuff chat between you and me, us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand. We all agreed tonight, all of the speakers have agreed, that America has a very serious problem. But our people have a very serious problem. America's problem is us. We are her problem. The reason she has a problem is she doesn't want us here. And every time you look at yourself, be you black, brown, red, or yellow, a so-called Negro, you represent a person who poses such a serious problem for America because you're not wanted. The only reason she has a problem is she doesn't want us here. What you and I need to do is learn to forget our differences. When we come together, we don't come together as Baptists or Methodists. You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist, and you don't catch hell because you're a Methodist. You don't catch hell because you're a Methodist or Baptist. You don't catch hell because you're a Democrat or Republican, and you don't catch hell because you're a Mason or an Elk. And you sure don't catch hell because you're an American. Because if you were an American, you wouldn't catch hell. You catch hell, all of us catch hell, for the same reason. So we're so-called black people, so-called Negroes, second-class citizens, ex-slaves. You're nothing but an ex-slave. You don't like to be told that, but what else are you? You are ex-slaves. You didn't come here on the Mayflower. You came here on a slave ship, in chains, like a horse, or a cow, or a chicken, and you were brought here by the people who came here on the Mayflower. You were brought here by the so-called pilgrims, or founding fathers. They were the ones who brought you here. We have a common enemy. We have this in common. We have a common oppressor, a common exploiter, and we have a common discriminator. We have a common enemy, and once we all realize this, then we unite on the basis of what we have in common. And what we have foremost in common is that enemy, the white man. He's an enemy to all of us. I know some of you will think that they aren't enemies, and time will tell, as it has. In Bandung back then, I think, 1954 was the first unity meeting of centuries of black people. And once you study what happened at the Bandung Conference, then the results of the Bandung Conference, it actually serves as a model for the same procedure you and I can use to get our problems solved. At Bandung, the nations came together. The dark nations from Africa, from Asia, some of them were Buddhists, some of them were Muslims, some of them were Christians, some Confucians, some were atheists. Despite their religious differences, they came together. Some were communist and some were socialist. Some were capitalists, and despite their economical and political differences, they came together. All of them were black, brown, red, or yellow. The number one thing that was not allowed to attend the Bandung Conference was the white man. He couldn't come. Once they excluded the white man, they found that they could get together. Once they kept him out, everybody else fell right in line. This is the thing you and I have to understand. And these people who come together didn't have nuclear weapons, they didn't have jet planes, and they didn't have any of all the heady armaments that the white man has. But they had unity. They were able to submerge their petty little differences and agree on one thing, that their one African came from Kenya and was being colonized by an Englishman, and another African came from the Congo and was being colonized by the Belgian, and another African came from Guinea and was being colonized by the French, and another came from Angola and was being colonized by the Portuguese. Well, I remember that. When they came to the Bandung Conference, they looked at the Portuguese, at the Frenchmen, at the Englishmen, at the Dutchmen, and learned and realized one thing that all of them had in common. They were all from Europe. They were all Europeans, blonde-eyed and white skins, blonde hair. They began to recognize who their enemy was. The same man that was colonizing our people in Kenya was colonizing our people in the Congo. The same one in the Congo was colonizing our people in South Africa, and in southern Rhodesia, and in Burma, and in India, and in Afghanistan, and in Pakistan. They realized all over the world where the dark man was being oppressed, he was being oppressed by the white man. Where the dark man was being exploited, he was being exploited by the white man. So they got together on this basis, that they had a common enemy. And when you and I here in Detroit and in Michigan and in America who have been awakened today look around us, we too realize here in America we have a common enemy. Whether he's in Georgia or Michigan, whether he's in California or New York, he's the same man. blue eyes and blonde hair and pale skin. The same man. So what we have to do is what they did. They agreed to stop quarreling among themselves. Any little spat they had, they'd settle it among themselves. Go into a huddle. Don't let the enemy know you've got a disagreement. Instead of airing our differences in public, we have to realize we're all the same family. And when you have a family squabble, you don't get out on the sidewalk. If you do, everybody calls you uncouth, unrefined, uncivilized, savage. If you don't make it at home, you settle it at home. You get in that closet, argue it out behind closed doors, and then you come out onto the street. You pose a common front, a united front. And this is what we need to do in the community, and in the city, and in the state. We need to stop airing our differences in front of the white man. Put the white man out of our meetings. No, but for real, seriously. Put the white man out of our meetings and then sit down and talk shop with each other. That's what we've got to do. I would like to make a few comments concerning the difference between the Black Revolution and the Negro Revolution. Are they both the same? And if they're not, what is the difference? What is the difference between a Black Revolution and a Negro Revolution? First, what is a revolution? Sometimes I'm inclined to believe many of our people are using this word revolution loosely, without taking careful consideration of what word this actually means, and what its historic characteristics are. When you study the historic nature of revolutions, the motive of a revolution, the objective of a revolution, the result of a revolution, and the methods used in a revolution, you may change your words. You may devise another program. You may change your goal, and you may change your mind. Look at the American Revolution in 1776. That revolution was for what? For land. And what did they want? Why did they want land? Independence. How was it carried out? Bloodshed. Number one, it was based on land, the basis of independence, and the only way they could get it was bloodshed. The French Revolution, what was it based on? The landless against the landlord. What was it for? Land. How did they get it? Bloodshed. Was no love lost? Was no compromise? Was no negotiation? I'm telling you, you don't know what a revolution is, because when you find out what it is, you'll get back in the alley. You'll get out of the way. The Russian Revolution, what was it based on? Land. The landless against the landlord. How did they bring it about? Bloodshed. You haven't got a revolution that doesn't involve bloodshed, and you're afraid to bleed. I say you're afraid to bleed. As long as the white man sent you to Korea, you bled. He sent you to Germany, you bled. He sent you South Pacific to fight the Japanese, you bled. You bleed for white people, but when it comes to seeing your own churches being bombed and little black girls murdered, you haven't got any blood. You bleed when the white man says bleed, you bite when the white man says bite, and you bark when the white man says bark. I hate to say this about us, but it's true. How are you going to be nonviolent in Mississippi as violent as you were in Korea? How can you justify being nonviolent in Mississippi and Alabama when your churches are being bombed and your little girls are being murdered? At the same time, you're going to get violent with Hitler and Tojo and as somebody else you don't even know. If violence is wrong in America, violence is wrong abroad. If it is wrong to be violent defending black women, black children, and black babies and black men, it is wrong for America to draft us and make us violent abroad in defense of her. And if it is right for America to draft us and teach us how to be violent in defense of her, then it is right for you and me to do whatever is necessary to defend our own people right here in this country. The Chinese Revolution, they wanted land. They threw the British out along with the Uncle Tom Chinese. Yes, they did. They set a good example. When I was in prison, I read an article. Don't be surprised when I say I was in prison. You're still in prison. That's what America means, prison. When I was in prison, I read an article in Life magazine showing a little Chinese girl, 9 years old. Her father was on his hands and knees, and she was pulling the trigger because he was an Uncle Tom Chinaman. When they had the revolution over there, they took a whole generation of Uncle Toms and just wiped them out. God forgive me, but that's what we need to do. Anyways, and within 10 years, that little girl became a full-grown woman. No more Toms in China. And today, it's one of the toughest, roughest, most feared countries on this earth by the white man because there are no Uncle Toms over there. Of all our studies, history is best qualified to reward our research. And when you see that you've got problems, all you have to do is examine the historic method used all over the world by others who have problems similar to yours. Once you see how they got theirs straight, then you know how you can get yours straight. There's been a revolution, a black revolution, going on in Africa. In Kenya, the 𝐷𝐼𝐼 were revolutionary. They were the ones who brought the word 𝐷𝐻𝐻𝑒 to the fore. The 𝐷𝐼𝐼 were revolutionary. They believed in scorched earth. They knocked everything aside that got in their way, and their revolution was also based on land, a desire for land. In Algeria, the northern part of Africa, a revolution took place. The Algerians were revolutionists. They wanted land. France offered to let them be integrated into France. They told France to hell with France. They wanted some land, not some France. And they engaged into a bloody battle. So I cite these various revolutions, brothers and sisters, to show you you don't have to have a peaceful revolution. You don't have to have a turn the other cheek revolution. There's no such thing as a non-violent revolution. I read that, sorry. The only kind of revolution that is nonviolent is the Negro Revolution. The only revolution in which the goal is loving your enemy is the Negro Revolution. And it's the only revolution in which the goal is a desegregated lunch counter, a desegregated theater, a desegregated park, and a desegregated public toilet. You can sit down next to white folks on the toilet. That's no revolution. Revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. The white man knows what a revolution is. He knows the black revolution is worldwide in scope and in nature. The black revolution is sweeping Asia. It's sweeping Africa. It's rearing its head in Latin America. The Cuban Revolution, that's a revolution. They overturned the system. Revolution is in Asia. Revolution is in Africa. And the white man is screaming because he sees revolution in Latin America. How do you think he'll react when you learn what a real revolution is? You don't know what a revolution is. If you did, you wouldn't use that word. Revolution is bloody. Revolution is hostile. Revolution knows no compromise. Revolution overturns and destroys everything that gets in its way. And you sitting around like a knot on the wall saying, I'm gonna love these folks no matter how much they hate me. No, you need a revolution, as Kirk Franklin would say as well. Who ever heard of a revolution where they lock arms, as Reverend Cleves was pointing out beautifully singing, We Shall Overcome? You don't do that in a revolution. You don't do any singing. You're too busy swinging. It's based on land. A revolutionary wants land so he can set up his own nation, an independent nation. These Negroes aren't asking for any nation. They're trying to crawl back on the They're trying to crawl back on the plantation. God forgive. When you want a nation, that's called nationalism. When the white man became involved in a revolution,